Stream. Okay. Hello, everyone. Who's watching on the replay? Because nobody could have tuned in the split second they would have seen. Oh my God, he's gone live. Anyway. So, I want to make a few announcements. I'm going to be having some guests on. I'm going to format it like basically me teaching a class, but you just get to sit in. So that'd be pretty cool, I think. What was the other thing? I should probably enable this text, because if you are watching a replay of this live stream, I do recommend playing it at a higher speed. What else? I felt like there was something else I was going to mention. Oh. Nope, don't remember. It's fine. I'm sure I'll remember at some point. Let's get rid of that, and let's go to this and see where we left off. Now, where we left off yesterday, it was, kind of a shabby camera track. It wasn't great. I have since cleaned up the camera track, and primarily by just adding more trackers and, like I always say, and then refining and making it better. Still, see that the lens is very flat, so there's not a lot of lens distortion. So that was good. What else can I tell you? I added some trackers that are like color coded, so that I could see more specifically in space where these features are. So when you look in the 3D view, it just makes them, why can't I deselect those trackers? Sometimes that happens. I don't know why. Here, hold on. Nope, that's not going to work either. And then sometimes I have to go to the hierarchy view and do this kind of action. Oh, I had the object selected, so that's why. That was a little funny. Anyway, these trackers are now more along, These trackers are more along this line, and they're more up here. I probably could move the whole thing down just a bit by hitting the hold button. And let's go here. Our plane that I had defined is right on the origin plane of the world that we're in. So I'm just going to move that, nudge it down a little bit. Let's get the hierarchy view out of the way. If I hold down there, I'm just going to move that down so that those are right on that plane. And if I select this guy, this plane object, which I still can't, I don't know why. Oh, I know why. Hang on. I had whole selected, that's why. So select this. I'm going to drag this in a little bit like so. And let's just move forward. Yeah, so that's lined up to those rollers pretty well. So that's great. I'm going to move this box up a bit. So let's go back to frame 0. And back in the GeoH track room, what I did, I'll just repeat it so you can see what's going on. So I have a tracker for the box that we did yesterday. I'm just going to put that in my folder cam, which is my place where I put things to not have them where it's just like a placeholder or like a folder. But it's actually a camera because I'm using a render cam for that. So I just name it folder cam so that I know it's a render camera. But I don't ever use it for anything other than to just keep my scene orderly. I just want to save the tracker. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to this box. The box is not... let's select our camera 01 so that's our active tracker host. Reselect the box. Move it outside of the object 01 We don't want that object 01 anymore. I'm just going to kill it. Reselect camera 01, lock. And I'm just going to move it up a bit because it wasn't quite sitting on the ground properly. So there we go. It's like a half a millimeter above the ground. You know, I can move it down even a little more. So just a little hair above the ground. And then back on frame 0. This is fairly decently aligned somewhere around there. It's got our little gizmo on the bottom, so we can drag that out, I guess. I'll drag it out a little bit more and then drag it back in. Now, I also want to adjust the height slightly. Best to do that in the 3D room where I can just adjust it directly here. And we'll just shrink that down just a tiny bit. Normally you would want, like if I was on set, I would scan that little blue object so that I didn't have to use a box like I'm using here. But I don't have a scan of that. We're just going to use the box. It's going to be fine. Let's make it a little longer, not wider, a little longer. This way. Yeah, there we go. Let's move this in and move it over a tiny bit more. And let's zoom in. So I'm looking at the base of this thing, which is really, if you look at that blue piece that comes out, this whole object looks like it's rotated slightly, which I already have it rotated slightly, but I'm going to rotate it a little bit more, like that, just to try and get it lined up nicely. And pull that out a little bit. Obviously, it needs to be wider still. And now I can just push it in a bit like that. And I just kind of have to tweak it until I feel like it's capturing, like it's a decent bounding box for this whole thing. Because you can see the way that the geometry is built, like it's kind of like goes up and then it goes out like that. But from this view, you don't see that so much, but you definitely see it in the silhouette over here. And it doesn't look symmetrical because if you look at this distance from there to there on the right side of the box, that's longer than this distance over here, but I can't really tell. It's just like the lighting is... Anyway, I did discover one other thing though. When I downloaded this footage, it was named 1920 1080 30 FPS, but it was not 1920 by 1080. That's why we have this 1280 by 720 HD image. That's why it's, you know, I expected it to be a little higher quality than this. So when you're dealing with muddy footage like this, which happens, you just have to do your best. But now that it's there, we're going to remake our GeoH object. So we'll go back to the GeoH room, and I'm going to move the hierarchy view back out of the way. Click the GeoH toolbar, which was already up, but I didn't notice that. So, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key. Let's get these boxes centered so that we can really see where our. Oops, no, don't want to do that. GeoH create, Shift, and then we're creating our object, and it's not creating. Why? Let's try that again. Shift create. There we go. I had the box selected, and you really should have nothing selected, so when you click on the box, it knows what it's doing. No big deal. So we just created our object in the center of the box. If you don't like how big the center of the object is depicted in this viewport, you can go to Edit, Edit Scene Settings, Object Size, it's 3 units, and I haven't really set a unit system in here. But whatever you decide the units are, those are the units. So if I say a unit is a centimeter, now this is a 3 centimeter box. But really, again, if you're going to go on set and you're going to be visual effects supervising, I would get scans of the table with the rollers. I would get, I would do a set survey. I would have all of this measurement information. Then I could just feed that in and everything would be at the right scale. We're just gonna not bother with that for this particular live stream. Okay, so now we have, oh, again, look, let's look at this. The hierarchy view in the GeoH track room, still not updating correctly. This time, it doesn't even add the object. So if you look in the hierarchy view, there's the object. I don't even see an object here in this hierarchy view. Definitely a bug. Something someone should look into. But I can select the object here. And then I can take that tracker that I moved into my folder cam, which is a stand-in for a folder, and I can drag that onto this object. So that tracker is now back. So we've saved our tracker. It's now back in the right place. Let's look at what we've got here. So our GeoH object is green, which means that our mesh is going to be depicted as or displayed as green. That's fine. I think that's okay. That's why the box color is overridden. Or overridden. Overrided? No. That's why the box color, it has been overridden. There. How's that? Grammar. We're going to, with that tracker now assigned, with that tracker now tracking the box, let's make sure that it is tracking. Yeah, it is. It's tracking. That looks good. We're going to do a little track, drop onto mesh, and now reselect our object. We want to track the X, the Z, pardon me. I think that's it. I think that we did a little like tilt and whatnot in the last one, but we don't have enough trackers to really be doing that. So I'm not going to bother for now, and I'm just going to hit track, which is the play button. And it's playing. The object is moving, it's being tracked, and it's just being driven by that one tracker. And you can see it goes off. Here, hold on, let's hit the 5 key to not have it be centered anymore. Part of what can help fix this is the way that we're interpolating our keyframes on our 2D tracker. And for that, we will go into the floating graph editor. Bring that over here. Here's object 01. Okay, joint variables. So these are our actor trackers. We have a tracker selected that's 1417, I think, right? Tracker. Oh, come on now. I'll just select it here in the graph editor, which you can do. That is the tracker. In fact, let's move the hierarchy view out of the way again, even though it doesn't update over here. let me just double check that. If I go into the 3D room and then back into the GeoH room, yeah, so it did update. A bug. All right, so when we look at our tracker, and we're looking at the keyframes here. Oh, it's doing that other bug. Here's the flicker bug. Just close the graph editor, reopen it, and the flicker bug will go away. Hey, look at that. No more flickering. Okay, let's say, so this is a complaint that I have. I'm pointing out bugs and I'm complaining, but this set to linear key and set to smooth key, I do feel like at one point those I used to be able to set those as linear or smooth. I don't feel like it was always just smooth, but that is how it is interpolating right now. It's just smooth key interpolation. And I thought about this last night, and I was like, oh, you know what? I could just set those to linear, and it wouldn't go all crazy like it does. But it definitely, I cannot change these, apparently. Let me zoom out like this, and typically you would just select all the keys, and you would go set to linear, and you click on set to linear key, but they're ghosted. So I don't know what to make of that. We should have a lot more control over the graph editor. We should have the ability to not just have Catmull ROM splines either, but these are like foundational decisions that were made early in the days of Synthize, because you wouldn't need this much animation control if all you were doing was tracking. But the world has gotten more complicated now, and so you have more capability that is more cross-disciplinary. It just covers more disciplines. So I want to be able to do more animation in here. I want to be able to do more image processing in here. I want to be able to do more like compositing type things in here, so that I don't have to go out to some compositing software and then back in. And those round trips, they take time. So that being said, that's why in the image preprocessor you can do color corrections and that sort of thing. I mean, I just want more, and I want more control here. So when we look at this graph editor, and let me shrink this back over there, as we're playing through and you see the thing go a little crazy here, and the reason that it's also going even more crazy is because I have the follow 5 key tapped. So it's trying to keep the viewport centered. So you see, let's see there. There we go, that's better. It is no longer following the tracker in this viewport. Okay, so we did some things yesterday that I was trying to basically compensate with the tracker. And why I also keep saying over and over, can I please just have this thing solving it all the time so that I can move the tracker and see it update immediately? But it doesn't do that now. And so the thing you must do is reselect the object, which I'm not going to be able to do. Cancel that. I select that here. And then on this frame, so let's say that the frame that the tracker shuts off, I'm going to create a keyframe here for the object's position. And when I say the object's position, only for the axes that are not locked. So that's the X and the Z axis. I'm going to create a keyframe there. And then on that same frame that I've created a keyframe, I'm going to now lock the X and Z position. And then when I go here, when the tracker turns back on, you know what, and I mentioned this yesterday too, there should be another, like, I should have a layout for this that's more friendly to what I'm doing. So let's make that. Let's go into the viewport layout manager, and I'm going to look at my layouts. Okay. So I'm going to say camera and perspective, but I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to call it camera perspective top left front. Top left front. Because sure, why not? And then I'm going to hit OK on that. And how do we want to do this? Let's delete this whole window here. And to do that, I can, how do I do that? I forget. Delete window. Select the window, delete window. Drag that all the way over. I'm going to drag this from the top. I'm going to split it horizontally, and then I'm going to take this top one and I'm going to split it vertically twice. So, and then this one I'm going to split vertically once. So this one's going to be the camera view. Okay, and this is going to be the perspective view. Where are we going here? These are in alphabetical order. Perspective view. We want this to be the top. Where's top? Top. This is going to be the what? What? I don't even know what happened there. Undo. This is going to this is going to be the front. Okay, and this one is going to be the left. That should be pretty good, like this. This isn't the front, this is the camera. There. Okay, camera, perspective, top, front, left. And let's go save all. And we'll save them to user current viewport layouts. Okay. Yes. And let's close this. So good, now we have a top view, a front view, a left view. We also have our camera view and our perspective view. So that makes this all a bit easier. So now we can like observe when our tracker really becomes useless and when we should be locking our joints and locks in the GeoH controls. So it goes to, when does it turn back on? So it turns back on like right about here, I believe. And we can see our tracker comes back into position right on that frame. So that's good. So let's unlock X and Z again. And that's a real time. So I just want that real time like feedback happening all the time. So when I unlock and lock, those update. I just want them to update along with the like 2D tracker when I drag it around. All right, let's go to here. I'm going to make another keyframe there for this. And then I'm going to lock those back. And let's go, wait, So the tracker comes back on. I'd say it gets useful here. That's like the frame that it comes back on again. X and Z, and it snaps into position. And then we'll just go forward from there. And it's tracking and it's beautiful. I love it. And we're going to take it all the way to the end. All right. So there we go. And obviously the track's working much better now because I didn't do a bad job on the camera track. The camera track is much better. As a result, you get better results. So, but when we look at this, this doesn't look necessarily so good. So we're going to do some things. And like all things in SynthEyes where you go, oh, my track is slipping, or my track isn't working, or my whatever is going on, you basically, oh yeah, look at that. So you can see what happens here. The thing just jumps from that frame to that frame. And I'm in GeoH the GeoH room, so it shouldn't be doing this. It should be much smoother. I don't know why. Oh, it's because I haven't set keyframes, I think. So I set a keyframe there, and then on this, I have to set a keyframe here. And now, now it's, now we get the keyframes in the middle. I forgot to set the keyframes. The GeoH tracker, once you get used to it, it gets, and if you're doing it a lot, this all becomes like more intuitive. But if you don't do this very often, I personally, every time I do use GeoH tracking, I'm a little confused in the very beginning, and then I go, oh yeah, that's how that works. So it's super powerful, but you know, like I said, it can be confusing. All right, so let's go back, select our object, which we already have selected. I'm going to add, and I'm going to the trackers room. This tracker, why is that tracker not? Yeah, okay. Well, it wasn't. I just had it unselected earlier, and it wasn't green, I feel. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. So let's Shift G. I'm going to go back to frame 0, and now we're going to track another feature. And I'm just going to look around and see, like, is there anything here that's going to be easier to track? Because if you track something like this corner, let's do it, and we'll just see why I don't like tracking things like this, where items are crossing in front of one another, and you end up with things in the background interfering with the track. So I'm just going to tap the D key. It's the key now and key smooth are set to 4. But you see the track is not stable, really. It's doing okay. I guess it's doing all right. Yeah, but to my thinking, it's, you know, it's just a little, it's just got a little high frequency noise in it. So I'm going to go to frame 2. I'm going to hold that, or frame 1, because we started frame 0. I'm going to hold on the Shift key and right click on now, and that's going to blow away all that tracking history that we just did. I'm going to move the tracker inside here, and now the tracker is going to be a lot more stable. So, which it is, and that's good. And we're going to go up to this frame now, make a keyframe, and I'm just going to turn the tracker off. I mean, we could do the by hand thing, but we're not going to try and use the by hand trackers to track through those spaces. Because it's just too hard. I mean, if the trackers gave you real-time feedback, maybe sure, but they don't. So the by-hand trackers, boy, that would be good. I'm going to just keep talking about it longingly. Oh, hey, how you doing, guys? Hi, good night. Have a good stream. I'll try and definitely watch later, but when you watch, watch, you know, at a higher speed, because there's going to be a lot. I remember the thing I was going to announce in the beginning too. I did this whole announcement and I forgot what I was going to mention. And what I was going to mention is that I've got help now, and we're going to be taking my live streams and creating actual like tutorial edits of them. So we're going to cut them down into the important pieces, and then all the speech disfluencies and the and all that stuff can get cut out, and all of the me jibber jabbering about things that are off topic, that can also get cut. It'll just be a little more dense, but The nice thing about the live stream, I think, is that when people watch me do this, they can kind of see the frustrations that you can run into. And I'm not editing those frustrations out. I want people to see that this can be a frustrating thing to do, tracking. So, and then if anybody has any questions while we're doing it, I'm live streaming Nuke Indie. Oh man, I haven't used Nuke in a long time. And don't get me wrong, I think Nuke is fine. I just, I had been compositing I've composited in every node-based compositing system that you can think of, including Chalice and things that you've maybe never even heard of. And when I started using Nuke, I actually used Nuke at Digital Domain before they sold it. And boy, man, some of the Nuke scripts, it would just be like, it would look like a spider web. Because the node connections weren't all nice and redesigned. And it worked nicely, but it was difficult. And then after, and I've been, my original point was that I've been compositing in Fusion since I think Star Trek Voyager. And Fusion was always great. And I've composited feature films in Fusion. And then once Fusion got bought by Blackmagic, I kind of walked away from Nuke and never really looked back. All right, let's keep tracking this. Have fun live streaming that, by the way. Even Natron, yeah, I've used that as well. I've tried to composite in Blender. That's no fun. I mean, there's some great things, but it's very Blender-like when you know. I wish Chalice had been better. It just was super crashy. And its user interface was, the user interface of Chalice mimicked Houdini. So you could bounce back and forth between it and Houdini, and it kind of made sense. But that was back in the days of, like, I was a beta tester on Houdini, like Houdini 0.9. And I remember all the Prisms guys would say, this shouldn't be called Houdini, it should be called Who Did This? And when Greg Hermanovic was still like the principal driving force behind Houdini, I remember showing him in Lightwave that I could be looking in another viewport at the camera. And he's like, what? Because you only could look through the camera back then. It was very weird. I mean, you would have orthographic viewports, but it was just bizarre. Okay, there's another tracker. And so once I get this tracker done while I'm talking, bye-bye. See you later. All right. Just tracking this corner. Finally finished. Let's lock the tracker. Let's just make sure it looks okay. Zoom out a little bit. Just backing up. It looks okay. I'm not gonna, not gonna complain too much. Tracker looks all right. We're gonna have to do a few more revisions. So what I wanted to show you, and I touched on this a little bit in my how to attach a mesh to a tracker live stream. Let's do a track drop onto mesh, and then go back to that layout of camera perspective, top, left, front, so that we can see, like, where did that drop onto mesh. So that's fine. We don't have a mesh. We're just using a box, so it's kind of going to be a best fit. And that's okay. Back in the GeoH room. Okay, we've got those. Now what we can do is we can say, let's unlock the pan. What frame are we on? 0, good. I'm going to unlock the pan and just track forward and see what happens. And so you'll start seeing the object start rotating a bit on its panning axis. And it goes a little like wonky here, but that's like I always say to everyone, you need more trackers. So we're going to go back, we're going to add another tracker right now to the front, right? We'll say right here. Undo that, select this tracker, and then C-click. Then it will inherit the characteristics of that other tracker. So the same size, same color, same search area, all of that. Let's go forward like this. And then when that tracker shuts off right here, just turn it off, and then we'll turn it back on and click to make a keyframe, and click to make a keyframe, make another keyframe, and then turn it. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to turn it off here and then turn it back on. So what I'm going to show you here is the lifespan overlaps of the trackers will determine, and this will show you a little bit about how Synthesize internally calculates your object tracks and your camera tracks. So when you don't have enough overlap in of all the trackers of lifespans, that's why you see jumps in your tracker, and you're going to see those jumps in here, and we're going to do them kind of a little bit on purpose. So let's get rid of that, and then when it comes back here, I'm going to click. I will Z-click to bring the tracker back, and then AF to kind of check my position. Let's go back a little bit. I think there. Yeah, that's good. Whoa, hey now, come on now. So when that happens, I will click on the last frame where I see it clearly, and then Shift key now to blow away the tracking history, and then turn off the tracker until I can clearly see it again, which that's not a bad frame. Let's turn it back on. And the tracker will find, it'll find the feature if it's in the search area. It'll do a best match, and that's going to be good enough. I'm really not shooting for like world-class tracking here. This is more about showing you how this all works. And we'll turn it back on here, Z-click, and we'll put that tracker right there. It's often helpful to hide meshes like this just to make it easier. If you're in the camera view, you don't have to hide them in the hierarchy like I just did. Like you don't have to hire the plane, do the plane there. You can just go to the mesh toolbar and say show meshes off. It'll still show you the meshes in the perspective viewport, which is nice. But go forward a frame. I'm probably gonna have to do a little bit of hand holding here. Not terribly much, I hope. Yeah, very low quality footage. And oh boy, no. So that's pretty good there, but I'm going to shift right click to blow away the tracking history, and then when it starts to go a little cuckoo, I will hand keyframe it through here. do that. And that. I'm actually going to shrink this. When you look at the pattern that I'm tracking, it's so mushy, and this is just how astonishing Synthesize is at doing 2D tracks. It kind of can't be beat. Let's get it through this section though. All right. Let's make a keyframe here and then go forward a frame and blow away that tracking history. And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So this is there's a little bit more motion blur in here because that's the point where our little blue guy tilts forward, and we're going to start being able to see. We're not going to need as many trackers as we would normally need to do an object track, but because we're doing this GeoH track style, but you still need to have enough trackers to really, here, let's right click that. You still need enough trackers to capture the motion. So it's turned off automatically there. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now we've just got 3 trackers on here. And I am going to do another drop onto mesh. Track drop onto mesh. And when you say drop onto mesh, you're telling it that seed point, you're saying, this is definitely where this is. You don't need to solve this. Ordinarily, Synthesize, when it does object tracks, it'll calculate the point cloud, but you're telling it this is where that point has to be. Moving that out of the way again, and let's go back into the GeoH room, GeoH track, and let's go forward. And so the track gets a little more stable because of our we have more trackers in there, but here the tracker shuts off and turns back on very rapidly over 2 frames. And let's look at that in that custom view again. So when it goes off here, you see the tracker goes off, the pan now snaps over, the tracker turns back on, and it snaps back. So for that, this is a great possible opportunity to use that by hand feature. So if I go trackers, and we'll unlock it, and right here on this frame there's a keyframe, and then we'll just set it to by hand, and then when it comes back on, by hand turns off automatically. That's nice. And so now when we play back through that, there's no more of that snap. You just don't see it anymore. It's nice and smooth. And so this, this is where GeoH tracking becomes very powerful. And here, now our track, you can see the thing is like, I don't know what to do. So it's kind of like tilting and panning rather. And then when the tracker turns back on, it snaps back into position again. And now it's off course. So we can, just like we did before with the GeoH tracker, everything is keyframeable, and we can use these positions when we get to this frame where that tracker shuts off. I've got a keyframe on my object, so I'll keyframe it, and now it puts a keyframe on that pan, and I'm going to lock the pan until we come out of that region and the tracker turns back on. So let's zoom out until we see that tracker turn back on right there. And Actually, we'll wait, because if we're looking at these other channels, the other two channels, X and Z, turn on this frame. So let's turn pan on this frame too. And let's make a keyframe for all of them. And then the interpolation will be in between, in those frames where it's just moving along. It'll be nice and smooth. And then it'll start getting, you know, some noise in it again. But you notice that the more trackers I put in, the less noise there is. So if I go undo that, you can see there's more noise. But then as I retrack with those additional trackers, the noise disappears. So it's all about how many trackers, and having enough trackers and having them be in the right position. And these joints and locks, being able to, you keyframe the first position, you turn on the lock, and then you wait until you see the trackers again. You keyframe that position, and you rather turn off the lock, keyframe that position, go back and play through there again, and you'll get a recalculated, nice, smooth path. That's how GeoH tracking basically works. I think this is probably another good spot to just kind of pause. You can experiment with all of this. Like, if we wanted, we could experiment with the y-axis as well. Let me just turn that off and you'll see. Now, we don't have enough trackers to solve for like three-dimensional transformation, but if you turn it off, I'm just going to turn it off, that lock, and we'll just see what happens, because it'll be humorous if anything. So now we're watching our box moving up and down, and it's vibrating, and it's basically doing funky stuff, and it's now interpenetrated with the so that's no good. Let's undo all of that. Let's go back to frame 0 and undo again. So we're locking the Y because we don't want it interpenetrating with the rollers. We want it to stay on the rollers. If we had enough trackers, if we had like 9 trackers with, you know, the known lens and all of that, you would be able to track its exact position and rotation. But when you don't have enough trackers, the GeoH tracker really becomes super useful. What else can we do here? Like, we would need one more tracker. Like, this is so confusing because I set those trackers to by hand. Let's kind of fix that a little bit. Undo that, and then where it says by hand, I'm going to actually turn that up and just turn the tracker off, and then wait until I see a that highlight, that now. I'm going to turn it back on. Oh, no, that was a by hand keyframe. When we see it come back here, now I'll turn it back on, and I will turn off by hand, and I'm turning off the tracker again, and then when it gets to here, and you see that keyframe, key now, highlight, I'm going to turn the tracker back on, and it's good. So I basically just removed those by hand sections. And I believe that there are some goofy keyframes in there too. I'll unlock that just for a second. I could go into the graph editor and find those keyframes and delete them that way. But if I just tap through here, I can find them as well. There's one right there. Keyframe that, or de-keyframe that. Because you can't see the keyframes down in the timeline when the tracker is not active. So lock that. There we go. That's better. All right. So let's go back to the beginning, go back to the GeoH room. And again, remember, there's no solve button. You just have to tap the space bar. And this is solving. And your track, the path and everything is being resolved. And you see the rotation goes nuts there. That's because I need to actually set the locks properly. So, which I did not do. So I should probably lock the pan here on this frame. So let's make a keyframe there. And then, actually, let's make a keyframe there. And then lock the pan. I'm going to de-keyframe that frame. There we go. Now it's not going bananas anymore. So great. And then you get that high frequency noise in there. It's because we don't have enough trackers. But in this view, our track looks pretty good. And you can get these done very quickly. Once you get the hang of it, and you figure, like, I only need one tracker to get it to move, then you just do that one tracker and then you move on to the next object. You might need two trackers to get it to rotate properly or be positioned properly. But it's a lot faster than having to do object tracks for multiple objects. And that was the whole point of the reference movie I showed you earlier, where all of these objects, they're all GeoH tracked, and they're all GeoH tracked exactly that way. Let's go back to the beginning. I'll just hit the play button again and again on my little preview. So yeah, for these, I was only keyframing, only putting in trackers enough to get sometimes the rotation to be right and the position, and that's it. And I was only doing it on the X and Z plane. And you can make the plane arbitrary, and you can do all kinds of very cool things. But as you see here, I mean, like, that only took 3 trackers to get us through this. And it's tracking pretty well. So there you go. That's it. Any other questions? Oh, no, there are no other questions. Hopefully, I will see you again in another live stream. Maybe this next live stream won't have to do with GeoH tracking. I keep seeming to come back to that somehow. But, and if anybody has any suggestions or anything like that, any questions, put them all in the comments, and I will talk to you later. Stop streaming.